Yo, hello, friendly ghosts, and welcome to RPG Maker 3. We're going to be making our own game. I'm trying to make an open world type of thing, fighter, puzzle solver. I don't know. We're just going all over the place. But, welcome aboard. I've done this in the past, but I've never actually done this in actual like group, participation and stuff like that. So, it ain't nothing too serious. I'm just like trying to buy time until Street Fighter comes out and stuff. But so let me give y'all a quick rundown for what I'm trying to do. I got a list right here. And right. So it's just talking about, just the beginning points for, when I started a project, I want to at least have some sort of direction that I'm heading. Oh, I don't got music playing. I'm gonna at least have some sort of direction that I'm going in. And let me put this on. Yeah. I want to at least have some form of direction that I'm headed in. Yeah. That way, my ideas will be able to flow a lot smoother, a lot more consistently. And so what we have at the first mark is world levels, is how many type of maps that I want. Got 12 field maps. Of course, this is going to vary. It all depends on how much usage memory I can get out of the game. Next, I have the gameplay triangle. I haven't even filled that out yet. The gameplay catch, I have choices equate to value point system. What I have is I'm planning on putting a system in place where I have time flows depending on player action. In RPG Maker 3, you have the choice to have time flow naturally, which it flows like every 13, 14 seconds, 10 minutes pass, right? Or you can have stagnant time. I'm going to have stagnant time because it allows me to keep a lot more events in check. You run the risk of having events run out of place and out of order if you have time flowing naturally, especially if you have a lot of maps and cities and interchangeable going different places. You can have an event that's supposed to take place at night and then you end up staying indoors for like night all the way to morning, and then you come out and then the event doesn't take place. So you have stuff like that where events just get lost in the sauce or doesn't trigger or something just gets messed up. So I'm going to try to have my events be triggered by the player's actions and progression, so time does not flow, it's stagnant, but it may flow in specific scenarios because that's another trick that I'll discuss for later. So I have choices equate to value point system. Growth, travel, traps at various points to the system. Time passes depending on the points. After X amount of days, the game concludes. Right, so that's a very basic form. The end goal is to form allies and or abilities and or tangibles to survive. Blah 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 blah. Final boss. The end of the game. And the middle is that slow in between mark in every novel, every movie, every game. It's that point where the game slows down to a halt and it can become a drag, it can become a slog to finish. It's where the negative scores come in. That's where your interest becomes lost. The middle, the filler, right? The Naruto special. This is where things are live and or die. So I have defeat low level enemies and solve puzzles to unlock environments for upgrades and treasure. Random treasure loot and key items, some locally randomized. Also try your luck gambling for items for 2 time points. Again, time points are the things I'm going to use to progress time, yada yada yada. Right? I also state that when I say progress time, this game has morning time, it has afternoon, evening, and then nighttime. And then it goes back to morning. So that's what I'm referring to about time points. Those are each of those time periods or events that you can use to trigger specific things to happen. So I can have something take place in morning time, I can have something take place in afternoon time, I can have something specifically take place in evening and or nighttime. I can use these specific marks to trigger a whole new set of events. So it's very useful to have that, and it can also liven the game and just create a lot more room for secrets to take place, right? This is only active at nighttime, and then if I throw in like a daytime event gear, you know, it just makes it all the more secretive. So next I have summary. Can y'all see this? Can y'all read it? Summary, cool. All right, summary. I just have a random title here. This is the lore, story that's, whatever. In the beginning of time, a being is born with free will to be a being is born with free will to be to the heavens or darkness. In journey to unlock the universe, the seed's path brings clarity to the potential of life. Right? Again, very basic. And then I have conflict. The universe is shaping. The seed must choose where in history it belongs to before the universe is complete, for it may become lost. It may become a drifting star in the abyss. Right? So that's just basically like conflict, get the game started. And then I have shared values. Well, I don't think we've had those set yet. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this. I'm going to get to the game, and we're actually going to put some events down. Right? So this is the very first event that I put down in this game. Is this little tiny box right here. This tiny little invisible box. I'm going to go to that and click it, or we could just use the shoulder buttons to quickly go to all the events placed down in the field map. And that's what it's titled. I'm not going to title it yet. You can also change like which shape you want it to be. You can have like be a shared, a global type of item, blah 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 blah. Just for decoration, or you can have it be like an outside. These are things that you can only place in field maps. Right? There's some specific categories you can only do indoors, outdoors, in fields, and etc. etc. So some of these are very specific. I probably will change this later on, but for right now I'm just getting things set. Okay, before we do this is the first thing you need to know when you're trying to make something happen. Everything happens through events. Every single thing that you need to take place, whether it be story, whatever, it takes place through these little events that I just did right here. It all starts here. So right here it says you have a category of occurrence types. Touch means wherever you have that event on your whatever map that you have, when you touch that location, that's when the event activates. Button is whenever you press the action button on that location, the event activates. And auto is whenever you're in the map, right? The overall map, whenever you're in that map, the event activates. If you have it on auto, there's a chance that you're going to get soft locks, and the game is going to continuously loop, and the game is going to create an error, and it's going to tell you, hey, you need to fix this. We're going to send you out so you can fix it. You can't play this. So yeah, that's all you need to know. And then you have like a treasure slot or like specific parameters you want to set. We'll get to this later, much later, but we will get to it. And this is the same thing, right? So I'm gonna have it on auto because it allows me to do a lot of the things I need to do, and I'm using this to set my time point system, right? So this is going to be the very first one. and I'm going to use values. Now, I don't know if you saw it in my notes, but I had right here, bring it up again. Oh, you can see it now, right? Shared values. And I have time point system, 3 points equals time of day passed, 11 total, value 1. All right, so the key thing that we want to note here is shared value. And what that means is right here. First of all, we go to control, and we're going to go down to value conditional branch. This allows you to do a lot of cool things and save a lot of space, because you only get so much amount of space before you can't place anything else down in this game. So go to this right here, we click that, and it creates us our branch. Asks us how many options we want. We want 2 options, 3 options, or 4 options. I picked 4 because that's the size that I needed, and this is what I did with it. So what this means, we'll go to it, go to the conditional branch. We have shared variables, we have variable 0, 1, and the only thing shared variables means is nothing. It doesn't mean anything. All of these shared variables, or whatever other type of variables, any of these, it doesn't mean anything. These are just different sections, different threads, right? These are all just different threads. That's all it is. That's all it is. It means nothing other than that. There's nothing special about it. So we have the shared variable threads, and then we have the variables, and we have an option of variable 1 to 60. I'm choosing variable 1, and that's where I'm going to put all of my time related stuff in, to have my point system take place. Now we have the values. Values are the triggers. These are which are the numbers on the right. These are what the number has to reach for the event to trigger. And you may be wondering, well, how do we set the variables? Where are they where we can place these magical event numbers so that they can activate? Well, I don't understand that part. You understand everything, because the numbers don't exist. They don't exist. They don't exist until you put them down, at least. So let's do that part, and then we'll come back and maybe we'll understand a lot clearer. The only way to add values to your variables is to go through the events. They all go through the events section. There's no other way. They're just an invisible number, so you might want to bring out a notepad and write it down somewhere. My shared variable 1. My shared variable 1. And then you want to write down, what am I using this for? So I have written down on mine, I have shared variables, or rather I have shared values instead. It should say shared variables. Right. And it's to say variable 1. Right. That's a 1 and looks like an I, whatever. So that's what we want. I have time points as my shared variables, variable 1. You have to write that down because nowhere else does the game keep track of it for you. You have to keep track of it yourself. So from then on, as I said, the only way to add to these variable numbers is to create an event yourself. And what you do is you go to property control, and in here you have all your variable settings. Now you have modify shared variables, increased, decreased, and then you have your internal variables. Really, there's not really much reason for the distinction here. That's just the way that they did it. Again, they all do the same thing. They're just different threads. You know, your shared variable is usually like your global thread, but also you can use that for internal events. It doesn't matter. In your internal variables, you can use them as your global, events. It doesn't matter. It's just different threads that you can use to separate and add more and more and more and more. So we're adding to our shared variable 1 just to show it off. So if we wanted to just immediately put an event and like whatever we would do to trigger the event, we'll use shared variable value 1, and then we'll increase the number to 3. And at variable 3, that's where I have my bottom event taking place, where it says value, greater than symbol or equal, and then 3. This symbol means if the number is at or above that mark of 3, then the event is going to take place. And the event I have is signified by the bottom thread, which I have right here, right here. And I should put the time at 11:30, right? So that is how this works. As long as you put somewhere, anywhere, these invisible numbers called variables somewhere in the game will keep track of it internally. Nowhere else. This is just a way to skip having to use key items to trigger something. You could use variables instead, so that they don't get too cluttered in your inventory, so you don't have to waste space creating a key treasure item. This is just a way to do it invisibly, so that the game can keep track of it, and you can also manipulate it in any way that you want, or at least in more ways. I'm going to delete this, but that's basically how variables work in a nutshell. They're just events that you place down and have a specific trigger point. So I have my bottom thread is whenever the shared variable 1 reaches 3 or greater, then the time is going to change to 11:30, and then 6 or greater, then the time is going to change to whatever, or whatever event that I put down in these slots. That's what's going to happen when these thresholds get reached. I hope that made sense. I really hope that made sense. It's not complicated. You just need to get it into your mind that variables are invisible numbers that you have to place down yourself. They won't be placed down if you never put them down. It's no different than making an event yourself. It's just really simple, right? So I have these all in place, and it's not done though. All of this means nothing because I don't have a variable event to make them mean something. I'll have to add that variable somewhere else, which as I mentioned, I'm going to have these variables increase based on player action. Whenever the player grows, whenever the player travels, whenever the player falls for a trap or whatever, then I'm going to go in here on that specific trap, on that specific character growth of abilities or whatever, travel, whatever. I'm going to go into whatever event that I have. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go to property control, and then I'm going to go down and I'm going to increase the variable and say, okay, well, you increased your strength by this much. Well, that's going to cost you whatever variable points, variable thread run, right? And I'm going to increase it by 2, right? And blah, 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 blah. That's it. And that's it. It is just that simple. You just have to keep track of the numbers yourself. That's the only part that you need to be wary of. Now, the other part that we need to worry about is, since we have an auto event happening, meaning it's going to happen automatically. It's going to trigger the moment that we step into this location, and it's never going to stop because there's no end to it. We need to put an end to the auto events. And that's the tricky part. How do we prevent this from looping? I'm going to prevent it from looping by using a treasure item. There may be a better way, but this is a way that I feel like is the most convenient right now. I may come across a better way later on, but for right now, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have, like, whenever the player becomes in possession of a treasure item, key item, then the event is going to trigger. And then what's going to happen is, you see right here, I have lose treasure. So the moment that you have the item, it's going to activate, and then the very first option in the thread, I'm going to have, okay, I'm going to take away that same item. I'm going to take it away. And that's going to prevent this from looping. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I got to create the item first because I don't have it. So let's do that. All right. So we'll go over here, we'll create the item for the treasure. Just go down here and create a treasure. Treasure are the most, it doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what it looks like. You'll never see it. I'm just going to name it because it helps me keep track. I'll have, like, what I'll call this, time gear. Very basic name. Time, I'll capitalize it too. No, time gear. And I triangle and erase the rest. And I'll just put like 1. And that's it. That's it. And I'll go back to not field. Field is where you edit the layout. We want to go to layouts. Layouts are where you place things down. I'm into soda buttons. Go back to the event. Go back to this, and I'll have whenever the player is in possession of time gear 1, the event activates. And then I'll go in here, and whenever the event activates, the player will lose time gear 1, and this will prevent this event from looping, and your game will be able to run smoothly. This is the way we want it. So this event is almost complete. Almost. What is missing is the fact that we don't actually have anything to trigger it yet. So that's the next step that I need to figure out. What am I going to do to have this event trigger? Let me think. Well, really, these are going to be, you know, player incited, right? So it doesn't really matter what I put down just yet. I could just put down anything just yet. I'll go down, I'll put standard event. This is where the magic happens. It all happens in standard event. You could do your own thing, but you know, standard event is where you do all the magic. What am I gonna call this? Player up? I'll call it player up. Player. Player up. Whatever, I'll change it later. And the music stopped. This game doesn't have good music. That's why I don't have music playing. Let's do this. This is fitting, right? Alright, so we named it. Doesn't matter what it looks like yet. And for this one, I'm going to have it be an interactable. For right now, at least. So whenever the player touches it and hits the action button, then I'm going to have go down. I'm going to increase the shared event by 2. Variable 1, I'll increase by 2. And let's say I want this to be like, oh, you train your character. And that's why I want 2 points to go in. I have for every 3 points, it's going to be a change in time of day. So you have to do this twice to see a change. And let's say I'll put down. Music's kind of loud, ain't it? I'll lower it down a little bit. Just a little bit. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. It's only that one part. So I'm gonna have like a training, whatever. So I'll go down and increase your abilities, or rather, I'll have, instead of just flat out increase your abilities, which we could do, just like, hey, you want to increase character, blah blah blah, increase their strength, blah 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 by this much, and it'll just increase it, right? It won't ask you any questions. It'll just flat out increase it. Instead, I'm going to give the player a choice. I'll go to control and I'll go to decision branch. And I'll click, how many options do I want? This would all depend on what type of game that I want to have, and I haven't quite put that down yet. But basically I'll just put this down and, then I'll be like, hey, do you want to do this? Blah, 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 blah. Is this something you want to do? And then, list of options. You want to increase strength or whatever. This, and then you'll go down to that and it'll create its own like thread. And you'll be like, okay, well, increase strength by whatever much. Increase strength this character by blah 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 blah. That's the sort of it, what I would do. But again, I'm not sure what type of game I want to have yet, so I'm not going to get too specific. I'm just going to have test the variable, and let's say that every time you do this, you get the treasure, because you're going to need that treasure key item in order for the auto time event to activate. So I'm going to have you obtain the treasure. You'll obtain the time gear, as I call it, and then it'll increase the variable and blah 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 blah. It's important to note that what I have here is these threads are very specific. You don't want to have your lose. This is the only thing preventing this event from looping. You don't want to put this inside one of the variable value threads, because then it will never activate. It will never activate if that's what you do. Yeah, it will never activate, because it only activates when you have basically you just don't want to mess around too much. You want to put everything outside the thread that doesn't need to be inside the thread. If it needs to be inside the thread, then do accordingly. But in this instance, I want it to be the first thing that is taking place to prevent the game from soft locking. So I'll put it at the very top. And it does matter the order that it goes in. And as well for these value variables in this thread as well. I have it ordered this way specifically because bottom is the least favorite and top is the most favorite. So putting the 3 greater and higher at the very bottom prevents it so that it doesn't overshadow the rest of these. If I were to put the 3 at the top, then any time that you get shared variable 3, it will just overshadow everything beneath it. So the order that you put these in matters. So just keep that in mind. The order matters, and everything else that we've talked about. So we've successfully prevented the game from looping. Let's test this out. It's going to be a very ugly looking area, but that's okay. We just started. So let's play test it. The game is not configured to be playable. Returning to the main menu. Okay, so basically it's saying you haven't set a location for your character to spawn in at. So we'll go to story settings. Story settings, and we'll place down start position. Field 1, and we'll put in this very bland, unedited location. Place the character right there. We also don't have a character, so we'll put character right here. You know, this thing is only like battle stuff. It doesn't matter. This is order. Active doesn't matter. It'll automatically set itself. And all right, let's test it out. All right. So what should also wait. We didn't set the time to stagnant, I don't think. But it doesn't really matter. If we activate this treasure box 2 times, then it should change the time of day. So that was 1 time, and there we go. It changed the time of day. I'll turn the music off. It's 2 songs playing. All right. So it does work. And we'll do it again. And now it's evening time. Late evening time. So maybe I want to adjust that to be a little more early evening. And then we touch it again. And we see one more to go to nighttime. And there we go. So it does work and it doesn't loop. Mission accomplished. And we see our little invisible event right here. Only visible in playtest, of course. So bravo. So our next course of action, although I want to create the field maps right now, I think we need to get under grasp what type of game we want to make. What type of combat do I want to have? So that's something I'm going to have to lab up real quick. But let me know what your opinions are so far. What are your thoughts? Do you have any input or anything, or any questions or whatnot? Feel free to ask me. I'll answer them to the best of my ability in the next part. Until then, this has been RPG Maker 3. And it's going to be a pretty... We're getting all the information out right now, but as we go along, it's probably turn into me just talking and vibing about random topics. I'm just giving you the introduction and tutorial right now so we can follow along and know what we're doing. But yeah, I'll bid y'all further ado. This is, I forgot my outro. May peace be with, always keep your heads up. Deuces, dos, both, adios, stay cool. And if you like this content, be sure to show some love, but always be sure to show that love to the people who matter to you. This is ITOwl bidding you much love. Prayers to the skies above. Always and forever. Peace, much love, and stay cool. Deuces.